Did you
Uh,
want to comment on the giraffe sticking his head out the window of the ark?
I didn't have much to say other than I like it. I'd have done the same thing.
Justin, we
Yes.
are live, reading the Bible. This is my favorite part of the day. I'm excited to be here with you as well. You're copycatting me, by the way. You're wearing the same outfit as me. Um,
Yeah, I mean, actually, I was wearing this shirt before you got up this morning.
actually, actually, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
yeah,
I think I've been wearing the shirt for about 2 weeks now. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, I haven't got the timeline on my shirt, but we'll see.
mm,
I don't
mm,
know.
mm.
I don't know.
Well, I'm excited about today because we are moving on through Genesis and we're on Genesis 6. Let's dig right into chapter 6. We're in the NASB today, and we're talking about the corruption of mankind today.
Yep.
And so let's get it on.
Let's do it, yo.
Now it came about when man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. I think it would be remiss of us not to stop right here
Hmm.
and discuss what in the world we just listened to.
Yeah, so there's a theological debate between what the sons of God means here. And so in the original Hebrew, it's B'ni Elohim. And the only other place in the Old Testament this is seen is in the book of Job. So
Mm,
one of the views here is that the sons of God is actually fallen angels who have come to earth and procreated with human women. And so in the book of Job, where Beni Elohim is used, it is the same term. It's referring to just angelic beings overall. So there's a couple different, uh, there's different perspectives on this. Kind of one of the things is that this is addressed in the New Testament as well, and maybe we can hop into that in 1 second. But in the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, which was written between 250 to 150 BC, the for the sons of God, the term that's used is angelos, which is angels. And then later on, I'm going to talk about another. Oh, well, yeah, in verse 4, the Nephilim, and that right there, the term used was gigantos, which is synonymous with using Titan. And
mm,
so I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with Greek mythology. A Titan, right, is a demigod, right, half god, half human. And so we see their own kind of cultural mythology play into just the translations that were used here. So
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
The sons of God mentioned here,
Hmm.
is that also in reference to the Nephilim here?
Yeah, so the sons of God, in my view, are the fallen angels, and the Nephilim are the offspring, like half human, half angelic being.
So it seems here when men
Mhm.
began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them. These are the men of Adam.
Yes.
humans.
Correct. Humans.
And so when you read this sentence I'm reading, now it came about after men started multiplying and they started having daughters, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, so there's a clear distinction here between the sons of God and men.
Mm-hmm.
And so the daughters of men were beautiful. So the sons of God took wives for themselves, as you mentioned before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the other view is that the sons of God means the line of Seth, and the daughters of men are the line of Cain. Um, and so that the idea is that they shouldn't have intermarried. Um, and so that is a view. And I guess that view fails to explain how the Nephilim, like, why is there somebody called the Nephilim? Why would they become mighty men of renown and things like that? But however, my view has weaknesses in, supposedly angels can't procreate, right?
Mm,
And so it's a mysterious passage, and so I don't want to get super sidetracked in this passage. But I mean, in First and Second Peter, he references this as well as Jude. So I mean, it's not just this random view, right? I mean, it's not just this random kind of built on these verses only. There are New Testament verses that talk about uh, things that happened during this time, and so. But here's the thing: I don't think the focus of this chapter is, either you believe in the angelic fallen beings view or the lines of Seth and Cain view. The idea is that the world had become extremely evil, and God, being a just God, had to do something about it.
yeah, I would agree. And I think there's something else to point out here. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he is also flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years." So it seems God is at this point is putting a limitation on the age of man, such that before, when they were living to several hundred years old, now 120 years, um, they're numbered, right? Somebody's lifespan is numbered to a shorter lifespan. Now, obviously, you can go to the previous chapter and learn about some of the situations which that could be the case. And there's a ton of research you can do online about this as well, with regards to how this is all played out. There's a lot of uncertainty around this. What is certain is we can read what the Bible says and have certainty in its truthfulness. Where it's uncertain is how that works in kind of the world we live in today. So there's a lot of different theories that we could research and look into. But yeah, those are kind of the two things that we really pull out here, right? The Nephilim, and then also our lives being limited to
Yeah,
120 years.
exactly.
So the average age of somebody living now in the world is around 70 to 80 years on average. Of course, you hear about people in the news living much longer than that, up to close to 120 years. So cool.
Yeah. All right, next section. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth. He was grieved in his heart. The Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the earth, from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things and to the birds of the sky. For I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So in this section, I want to make a distinction between, God, it was sorry that he had made man on the earth. I think that uh, a lot of times, or in the Bible, sometimes they use like human attributes to express these ideas, about how God feels in response to something. And I think that we want to be careful not to like apply too much of our own human perspective on that. So sorry as in like, obviously this isn't meaning that God was wrong, right? That God did something wrong and that he was sorry for it. I think this is an emotional response about like whenever, something happens and you're like it said, his heart was grieved, right?
Hmm.
And so, you know, um, he had made humans, given them free will, and they had gone off in a bad direction,
Right.
and that grieved God. So
Every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. That's that's horrible.
yeah,
I mean, if you really look at what does that mean exactly? I mean, imagine being on a planet where every intent of the thoughts of man's heart was only evil continually. I think we see a lot of evil in the world today, but I imagine that this sounds worse. I think it'd be hard to say that now that every intent of the thoughts of man's heart is only evil continually. I think it'd be harder to kind of see that in our world today. I mean, obviously you can see it a lot, but I do see some people around that do and say good things.
yeah. I think one of the things here, I've heard scholars say that God instituted government in Genesis 9, and so they speculate this would have been more like of a chaotic society. And so I feel like that we have, when God instituted governments and the governments we have, like there's a lot of accountability now. So I think that
mm,
people, there's kind of just this, if I do this, this will happen. There's very real consequences. And so I think that keeps our society in check today in a lot of ways.
yeah, yeah, that's
But
brutal.
this idea of, but I mean, obviously we see in the Old and New Testaments this depravity of man is a very real thing even today, and it's too bad,
Is
you
there a
know.
connection between the wickedness of men and your position that the Nephilim were fallen angels and interbreeding? Do you think there's a connection in there, or do you think not?
I mean, I think there could. So I think that regardless of what the Nephilim were and did, I think people were just being really wicked. Um, and I think that I was going to talk more about it when we read more about Noah, but the idea is here, we see from this, the sons of God saw the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took them as wives. And so I think, though, my position has the view that, we see Genesis 3:15. We already talked about that in a past session. And so we see that God promised this Messiah, and I believe that Satan understood what God meant, and so that he knew that the Messiah was going to be born of the seed of the woman. So I believe Satan thought that if he could corrupt the seed of the woman, then he could prevent the Messiah from coming. Because the Messiah has to be a full human being, right? So he has to be a full person. It cannot be half fallen angel, half human. And so I believe that Satan was trying to send his angels to corrupt just the human genetics, right? So that it wouldn't be fully the woman's seed. And so anyway, I believe that that could have played a role. But either way, regardless of the people that weren't, half fallen angel, they themselves, it appears, were wicked regardless.
Right. And I think the really last sentence here is exciting to me because then you see, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So this is a kind of a light in darkness. And so we'll move on to this next section. Verse 9. These are the records of the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. Noah became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth.
So one of the things here that also contributes to my view is in verse 9, when it said Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. So it kind of has this double righteous and blameless. I believe that the blameless may be referring to his genetic line. Like Noah wasn't corrupted by the Nephilim and what was going on there. But regardless of that, we see here, and one of the verses, I believe it was either in 2 Peter or Jude, uh, where it talked about the events of the Nephilim. It talked about how Noah was a preacher of righteousness, right? And so I believe during this time, based on the New Testament scriptures, we'd see that Noah most likely was telling people, in a sense, like we talked about Enoch the other day, right? Telling people, hey, there's a holy God. You guys are sinning. You need to stop doing that. You know what I'm saying? And so obviously that message was rejected, and that a righteous God needed to execute judgment now.
Yeah, one of the things that seems interesting is it's talked about Noah walking with God. It seems like there's this kind of journey together that they're going on. Noah walked with God. And I think a lot of times you can kind of feel like you're on this journey alone. And when you put God first in your life and you're in prayer and you're seeking Him first, I think you can have a lot more confidence in the path that you're on because you're walking with God as opposed to walking alone. So Noah became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
I believe that Shem was the line that Christ came through.
And then it talks about here, now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. So it kind of gets a little more specific here about what type of wickedness is discussed up here. Evil continually. And then we see violence. And God.
Yeah, so
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, which it could have just been people, they attacking each other, killing each other, things like that. Like, obviously, violence is a really severe sin, I believe it's in the book of Psalms, it talks about how, there are certain things that God hates and detests, and it's, talking about the feet that run to shed blood, innocent blood, and so violence is a huge sin, because, it's hurting people that were made in the image of God, you know what I'm saying? And human life is valuable. And so that's a big deal.
Yeah, extremely big deal. And it continually talks about how corrupt the earth is here. Do you want to read this?
Yes. Then God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. And behold, I am about to destroy them with the earth. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. You shall make the ark with rooms, and shall cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you shall make it. The length of the ark 300 cubits, its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. You shall make a window for the ark, and finish it to a cubit from the top, and set the door of the ark in the side of it. You shall make it with the lower, second, and third decks. Behold, even I, am bringing the flood of water upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life from under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall perish, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark, you and your sons, and your wife, and your sons' wives with you, and every living thing of all the flesh you shall bring 2 of every kind in the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female, of the birds after their kind, and of the animals after their kind, of every creeping thing of the ground after its kind. 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. As for you, take for yourself some of all food which is edible, and gather it to yourself, and it shall be for food for you and for them. Thus Noah did according to all that God had commanded him, so he did. So now here's where he built the ark, and it's cool how like it gives us the dimensions. So that wasn't like another document, right? That was like separate from the preserved word of God. And so it's cool. I think is it in Tennessee there's a Noah's Ark museum where they made it like the all the correct dimensions or whatever, and inside the structure is the museum.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
yes,
they have one of those, and it's definitely a fascinating picture. Here are some of the pictures right here. And so if
yeah,
we
that's really cool.
look across, we can see what the dimensions are, right? So it mentions the different cubits,
Yep.
height, width, and breadth. And so this is kind of what, based upon those dimensions, what some people have kind of come up with what they believe it would have looked like.
Definitely believe it had a giraffe standing on the front like that picture showed.
I did.
But yeah, but no, but that's really cool, and I mean, I think that's a cool kind of scenario that like you're like hanging out and all the animals of the earth just come to you, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's pretty specific instructions
yep.
here on how to make it, and then it will mention the number of decks. So there'll be a lower, second, and third decks. So this is a 3-story deal, and it also mentions why
Yep.
God is asking him to do this, right? It says up here that the earth is filled with violence, and then it also mentions here, behold, I, even I, am bringing the flood of water upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life from under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall perish. Why? Because the earth is filled with violence.
Yeah, and I think that this took some or faith on Noah's part to build this ark, because I mean it appears that the earth had never been flooded before. I mean, from my understanding, it hadn't even rained. Earlier in the Bible, it said there was like a mist that would come up from the ground, right? That would kind of provide the plants that their own water. And so yeah, the idea that it had never even rained yet, and it was about to rain so hard that it would flood over every mountain. That's a big deal.
There's a mention of a covenant here. But I will establish my covenant with you. So obviously he's talking to Noah
Mm.
in this situation. This is interesting to say, because is this the first covenant? It doesn't seem like it is, because God already says that he is going to do something, which if he's going to do something, he's going to do it, as we saw in earlier chapters. But based upon my understanding, this is the first mention of a covenant that God has. Are you
Yeah, and if
familiar
I
with this covenant?
yeah, well, if I remember correctly, God elaborates more on this covenant after he lets Noah out of the ark. So after the flood waters receive, I believe he tells him some more things, like gives him some more instructions. And so I think that yeah, I think maybe we dive into that. I believe it's chapter 9. Yeah, so I think we should remember that. We should put a pin in it, and dive into it, I would think, what is the Mosaic covenant, or sorry, the Noahic covenant, in that chapter, but or in chapter 9, but yeah, I mean, there's there's potentially like an Adamic covenant, then you have the Noahic covenant, then you have the Abrahamic covenant, then the Mosaic covenant. So there's different covenant type things going on in sections of scripture. But
Right. Keeping an eye on this covenant's definitely worthwhile doing. And it mentions here specifically you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. So we're seeing exactly who's going to be
uh,
entering the
eight,
ark.
yeah, 8 people were on the ark.
Right. So Noah and his wife, and then his
Mm.
3 sons, which are mentioned up here, Shem, Ham, and Japheth,
Yep, and their
and then their
wives.
wives.
Yep.
And basically, those are the humans that are going to get on the ark. But then you also have every living thing of all flesh, and shall bring 2 of every kind, which is specifically mentioned here, into the ark to keep them alive with you. So male and female, of course, so they can reproduce. And there's another mention of kinds here.
Yep. And something interesting, also just on the young Earth perspective, like a lot of younger scholars believe that dinosaurs were actually on the ark, which is a cool thing. Like that would be crazy to like be Noah and like the Mr. and Miss T-Rex walk up, right? And you're like, okay, you're down 3 doors on the left or whatever. I don't know how he let all the animals into like their stalls on the boat, but remember at this time animals are not carnivorous yet. That doesn't happen until Genesis 9.
Mm.
So
Why do you
but
say that they're
anyway,
not carnivorous yet? Why do you say that?
well, you don't have animals eating other animals yet. That happens in Genesis 9. So like there's no animals eating meat, right? Because kind of like you brought up about earlier when we talked about the age of the earth, and if you're older, that means death came before the fall, right? Because that means animals would have had to been, because you have fossils of animals inside other animals, right? That animals would eat other animals. So at this point, everybody ate veggies.
Yeah. But the question is, I mean, really, so you think they're all you think even the animals are vegetarian? I mean, this is after the fall, right? So
It's after the fall.
people and people can die. But we're going to see in chapter 9, right?
Right, right. Yeah, chapter 9 will help kind of flesh this stuff out more too.
Yeah. Um yeah. So I think that's basically it, right? So we don't know for sure.
Right. I mean, we know that before the fall, they were
All
none of them
veggies.
eat meat, and we know after the flood, they were definitely carnivores by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw a lion eating a gazelle in my backyard the other day. So,
Really, that's beast mode.
yeah.
Could you scroll up a little bit? I thought I was gonna say something else about something. Um, no, I feel like
Did you want to comment on the giraffe sticking his head out the window of the ark?
I didn't have much to say other than I like it. I'd have done the same thing.
Yeah.
uh,
That's like the first image of like when dogs like to stick their head out of cars when you drive.
yep.
If we had pet giraffes, they would do the same thing. No question
Giraffes
about it.
don't have a voice box though.
Really?
Yeah, they can't make any noise. I mean, as far as like vocally, they can't vocally make noise.
How do they talk to each other?
What is it called? That thing that nonverbal communication.
Really?
Yep. Are you? I can tell you're fact checking me right now. Go
No,
ahead.
no, no, no,
I'm just
no.
kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't care.
You know, they have moans apparently and grunts.
Really?
Yeah.
But do they have a voice box?
I wasn't even gonna look that. Do giraffe? Someone's looked this up before. Giraffes do have a larynx voice box, but perhaps they couldn't produce sufficient airflow through their 13-foot long trachea to vibrate their vocal folds and make noises. The researchers suspected the reason no one heard giraffe communication was because the sound frequency was too low for humans to hear. Scientists finally know what sound a giraffe makes. What does the giraffe say? For decades, it's been a simple answer: nothing. Except for a snort or a grunt every now and then. The giraffes have a voice box. One line of thought was that due to their long necks, blah, blah, blah. Now say they determine that giraffes do indeed produce vocalizations that may serve as a means of communication. So, giraffes do have voice boxes.
Interesting. I was wrong.
Yeah. I'm glad I double-checked that. I didn't want to mislead the audience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we won't have the giraffes not having voice boxes in the final cut anyway, I don't think. But
that's
I mean,
that's going in.
You think so? I think we're just like joking around right now.
I mean, I don't want any kids to like fail their next science exam.
Yeah. Well, I guess in the past though they would have passed it with that question. But yeah.
Should we change our YouTube channel to Two Bros Bible Study and Giraffe Study?
We should. Giraffe Bros. Dude, that'd be awesome if like in the future we had a clip of you and me at a zoo with the giraffe behind us, like
Two Giraffes Bible Study.
Yeah, Two Giraffes Bible Study. I like it. Yeah.
Can we both start dressing up in giraffe outfits?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they got that on Amazon. I can order a shirt right now.
A shirt? I want a full-blown costume.
Yeah, but all they can see on us is our shirt for our...
I know, but and the head part. Like
okay.
I want our eyes
Giraffe
looking out
costume?
the aisle. Yeah.
Been a camel. I think you remember that.
Yeah. What part of the camel were you?
That was the camel's butt.
Really?
Yeah, you remember that.
I do remember that. That's why I asked.
Oh, yes, giraffe costume.
Dude. Some of these, you might fit into that one nicely.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll be a problem if I sit down in my chair with this thing?
No, I think that would be totally cool.
Oh boy. Alright. I didn't realize how much this YouTube channel was going to cost us, but now we need to spend $500 a piece on giraffe costumes.
I like it. I'm in.
Okay. So we have different kinds, right? And so not every animal of every different type of species, right? So if you think about dogs, right, you might have a Doberman Pinscher, or you might have a Terrier, or you might have a Lassie, or you might have a Wiener Dog, or you might have a Snickerdoodle. You know, it's like...
You think Chihuahuas were on the ark?
Definitely not. Okay, definitely not. You have all these different dogs, right? And those are different breeds of dogs.
Yeah.
So I think this idea of kind is not really mentioning every single type of breed. It's mentioning two dogs, canines, were on the ark. And that's how you get everything into this ark, you know?
Right.
Because if you had to bring Chihuahuas and Malteses and Doberman Pinschers, I mean, you could fill a whole ark of just every single different type of breed, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, I didn't hear you name any types of dogs other than Chihuahuas.
Yeah, I'm not a dog expert like you are. Wait, but you didn't say Labradoodles.
Pomeranians,
Oh,
Um,
Pomeranians are so annoying.
yeah, yeah. I think.
God actually didn't want to preserve the Pomeranians. It was only the evil actions of men who brought him back later.
Yeah, I agree. There was definitely a. I think the wickedness came back.
Yep,
So
definitely did.
yeah, it doesn't mention Labradoodles or
Nope.
Pomeranians here.
But you know something interesting, like the story of Noah, we're just really getting kind of, this is just the first chunk of it. We've still got 7, 8, and 9 that it talks about Noah. And so it's kind of cool. And actually, when I looked into Noah spent a lot longer on the ark than I thought he did. But I won't get into the specifics until we read that verse. But it's kind of one of those things that we see Noah, deal with some different stuff, and it's cool to refresh our memories on, what all he did. So
So of the birds of their kind and the animals after their kind, of every creeping thing of the ground after its kind.
that
Let's.
means the praying mantises.
That means the roaches.
Yep.
That means the ants.
Yep.
Um, there is an online website where you can buy merch.
Merch. You can buy your own bug shirt.
Merch.
Merch.
Creepythings.net, everybody. Get your merch there. It is super top quality, and you
And it's
know,
biblical.
and it's biblical. And if you love Jesus, you'll buy the merch. So, just kidding though. Yeah, every creeping thing of the ground after its kind, two of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. So two of every kind will come to you.
But I think when it says two of every kind, that's the male and female.
Right, but it says they'll come to
Yeah. Yeah. So
you,
in other words,
come
like
to
I said,
Noah.
like yeah. So the T-Rex and the gazelles, the buffalo, every all of them would walk straight up to Noah to enter the ark.
Right, so Noah didn't have to go out and
No.
round up these animals himself,
Right.
because he would have to go on an epic safari to do that.
Oh man, that's beyond hardcore. Yeah.
As for you, take for yourselves some of all food which is edible. Food which is edible. That's the kind I like to eat as well.
Yeah.
And gather it, and to gather it to yourself, and it shall be for food for you and for them. So they're gathering food for both people. I think we know this is plant food, not animal.
Right. Well, I mean, this is also like berries, probably, right? Like vegetables, like the fruit from trees, all that kind of stuff. The plants themselves.
Apples,
Yep.
carrots,
Yep.
broccoli,
Yep.
spinach.
Ooh.
I don't think they brought spinach on the ark, would be my guess. No one wants
Yeah, you could have that after the arc. Yeah,
onions.
yeah, maybe.
Definitely didn't have onions on the ark. Tomatoes?
Yeah, I could see them kicking it with some tomatoes.
Tomatoes cause inflammation though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Noah lived about 900 plus, so I'm pretty
Okay.
sure. I think Noah lived about 900 years old.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah. What about like grass? Do you think they had grass on the ark?
Probably for the animals.
Like hay?
I don't know. I don't think they had hay like we have hay today, because the hay that we have today is like there's a specific agricultural process, right, to cut it up like that.
Yeah.
And so I would assume that their animals would have eaten the straight plants.
So do you think they had a T-Rex on the ark?
I think they do.
There's a lot.
I think dinosaurs were on the ark, and then I think the dinosaurs went extinct after the ark. And I mean, it's just what we call dinosaurs, right? So what about like rhinoceros or alligators or things like that? That would have been similar to what we would have seen as a dinosaur type creature.
Yeah.
But
I mean, reptiles. You're talking about reptiles.
exactly, these were just giant reptiles.
Right.
I mean, like Komodo dragons still exist today, so.
Right. I've seen some really big alligators too.
And, I agree. And there's speculation that there might still be some dinosaurs alive today. Yeah, there's been, anyway, that I don't want to get off topic, but there's speculation they could be hidden like in deep woods of Africa. There's current cave drawings that like native peoples will draw of like these creatures that look like dinosaurs, and then every once in a while you'll see like this giant prehistoric looking creature gets tangled up in a net of like a fishing boat or whatever, and it'll make some news. But
Right.
yeah. But no, it's yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like, can you imagine being Noah, having this responsibility and getting to hang out with all the animals, So
Right. Right. Um. Yeah. And then finally, Noah did according to all that God had commanded him. So he did.
Mhm.
So Noah obeys God, and ultimately, I think we'll see that Noah benefits from ultimately obeying God, because I think Noah had a choice in this situation, right? He could have
Yeah.
decided not to obey God. But of course, Noah was going to, because as we see up here, he was walking with God.
Yep.
So, with that said, any final thoughts on this?
Oh, I just think, like you said, Noah was delivered because he was walking with God and because he was righteous, and the people who were in rebellion against God were judged by God.
Right,
So, I mean, that's just kind of a good overall sum up of how life will conclude.
right.
Where they're going to be delivered by God because we were following Him, or we're going to be judged by God because we were rebelling against Him.
Mm,
So yeah. Yep.
yeah.
You have any other final thoughts on this? Genesis 6.
Um, no, I think it's a good one. Look forward to watching the next one.
Yeah, man. And where the flood waters are going to start to rise tomorrow.
That's right.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, we'll see you at the next one, Chapter 7. Have a great day.
All right, guys. See us.